Hey there. I just got back from Costa Rica, a week-long vacation, and it was fabulous. I did not get as much sun as I thought I would because we spent a lot of time in the jungle. We did hit the beach. They have beautiful beaches, and it was fantastic. I don't think Costa Rica can be anything less than fabulous. So while we were there, we had the pleasure of meeting two amazing ladies staying at the retreat center that we were at. And they both were familiar with doTERRA and used doTERRA oils. And as we were driving up the mountain one day, Kelly remarked that she loved essential oils and she used them for aromatic purposes to help deal with some stress and anxiety that she dealt with on a regular basis and found them effective, and use them in her yoga practice, which I thought was awesome. And the internal debate came up, which I always find really exciting. I feel very confident and competent to discuss this. And so I love sharing the information that I've gathered because this was very important to me. You know, when I first started using doTERRA, I looked into it and I came across all of those blog articles online that scare the crap out of you and tell you that if you drink even one drop of essential oil in your water, it's bad news and you're going to die and it's toxic and your liver can't, dispose of those substances, and all of this, you're damaging your mucosal linings. And so I took it seriously and I researched it a lot. I researched everything I could find on the subject, and if you know me, you know that it's very important to me to research both sides of an argument. Okay, I think if you're only looking at one side of an argument, you're not doing a really good job researching it. And I also recognize that doTERRA has published information about this, and while it's solid and backed by science, and they, cite their sources for the statements that they make, I recognize that they're inherently a biased source, right? Because they're selling essential oils. So I get it. I wanted to look elsewhere and have the information validated from other sources as well. So I would just like to take a second and point out some of doTERRA's sources. So they have a few articles. One is called "Is It Safe to Ingest Essential Oils?" And this is written by one of their physicians on their physicians panel. They actually have a great little segment from the 2016 convention, which I attended, and I taped this on my own phone, but they have since released a corporate version that I will share in a link here. So Dr. Joshua Jorgensen, who's an MD, and he is an otolaryngologist, which is an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. He is a member of doTERRA's medical advisory board. He wrote an article, and it's excellent. It gives a lot of information. It does touch on the mucosal lining issue. So I just want to point out one highlight from that article. He said, studies, so the premise of these discussions is that essential oils could be harmful when taken internally. However, studies suggest just the opposite. Essential oils may actually be protective to the mucosa. Many studies show that essential oils can have a positive effect when there is a problem with the stomach's mucous membranes. For example, limonene found in citrus oils was shown to help protect the stomach mucosa in a preclinical study, and there's a source for that. This protective effect was shown without affecting normal stomach acid secretion, gastrin, enzyme secretion, or antioxidant glutathione production. Many other studies have also demonstrated similar effects, and there's 6 additional sources listed for that statement. So I don't understand what gastrin enzyme secretion is or antioxidant glutathione production. If I wanted to learn more about that, I would go to the sources, I would Google those things, and I would look them up, right? That's a normal part of the research that I do. But what he's saying is the positive effect was shown without any adverse reaction to normal stomach acid secretion. That's one article, which I've linked to too. The next article, or another article that they have, is the internal use of essential oils. And there's a link there for essential oil metabolism, which is another separate, very interesting article that explains how essential oils are metabolized by the body. And I think this is a very misunderstood topic in the online world. I think that there's a lot of information that only has a very basic understanding, and there's a lot of stuff being regurgitated without a really solid understanding. And that's dangerous because what it's doing is not only misinforming people about a topic that they're genuinely concerned and trying to educate themselves on, but it's also instilling fear in some people. You know, when you say things like you can't even take one drop in your water because you're going to burn your tissue, those statements are pretty significant. And unfortunately or fortunately, the research does not back that. There is no research proving that. And there is, in fact, a lot of research proving that it doesn't cause harm. So I just be cautious of scare tactics and really try to look at the source of the information. Where is the information coming from? You know, look for sourcing. Look for where, you know, taking someone's word on a very important issue is likely not enough. And even if there's multiple people saying similar things online, it's bad, don't do it. Look at where the information is coming from. You know, I really like to... the reason that I like to look at both sides of the argument is so that I can make up my own mind, so that I can determine based on the information what sounds reasonable and logical to me. So that's what I've done, and I'm trying to share that with you to help you in your research as well. And I'm not saying you should take my word for it either, right? I'm saying use this as a jumping off point to do your own research and trust your gut, trust your intuition. And if you're not comfortable with taking essential oils internally, then don't do it. You know, it's really that simple. Nobody's forcing you to. So this article on the internal use of essential oils talks about the French model. They talk about some of the controversy, and they basically just state, you know, that the fear is unfounded when looked at under scientific scrutiny. So they say you can check out mucous membranes and essential oils to learn more. And there are some oils, they point out, that are not recommended for internal use. So arborvitae, birch, cedarwood, cypress, eucalyptus, white fir, and wintergreen are best used aromatic or topically. And you can look into why that is. doTERRA also makes pre-packaged versions of a lot of their most popular internal usage oils so that you don't have to worry about dosage and dilutions and things like that. They're already in a prepackaged soft gel. So Digesten, On Guard, Tri-Ease, Zendocrine. What else do they have in their soft gels? There's more. Oh, now Serenity. They have their sleep blend in a soft gel format, and there's more. But that's just a rundown. So there, like I said, there is a great article on essential oil metabolism, which is a little bit more sciencey. And, you know, they take an example of, this is touched on online in some articles by some bloggers, that when your essential oils are metabolized in your body, they're broken down into different components and therefore behave differently in the body. And there's another great source that I have for this, which I'm going to share with you in a minute. And if you're interested in learning more about that aspect of it, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing resource. So they talk about one study where limonene was explored, which is the primary constituent in many citrus oils. And that constituent is changed in the body to produce pyrulic acid as its primary metabolite. And there's a source for that. And although limonene itself is highly efficacious, the article says, pyrulic acid mimics the effects of limonene and can have an even demonstrated stronger effect. And there's 3 sources for that as well. Three. So basically what they're pointing out is how the metabolites of essential oils have been found to be biologically active and contribute their own favorable effects. They go through another example with linalool acetate, which is found in lavender and clary sage and bergamot in higher percentages or higher amounts, and how the body metabolizes that into linalool. And there's another 2 sources for that. They talk about linalool is thought to promote relaxation, and there is evidence suggesting that when linalool acetate is administered by itself, it can also promote relaxation. And they're saying this probably occurs because the linalool acetate is converted to linalool. And you can also, all three of these articles that I've mentioned so far from doTERRA, there's a bibliography at the bottom of each of these articles. So you can go and look at the source of each point that they mention, and you can look at the bibliography that they're drawing the information from. This was one thing I have to say that stood out to me right from the beginning when I started using doTERRA oils and looking into them and researching them as a company and comparing them to other essential oil companies. They are truly a science-based company, and that I find extremely reassuring because they want to, they have a vested interest in understanding the science behind essential oils and how they're utilized in the body. Come here. My little kitty has come out to say hello. We are just away, so I'm trying to get as much cuddle time in with him as I can. Hi. Hi, little guy. That's probably another topic that I will cover because it's one that I think is highly misrepresented online, and that is the topic of essential oils and cats. And of course, this was a topic that was very near and dear to me, and I was happy to do the research more than once. So I did the research for myself, and then it came up again when a potential customer was curious about it. So I looked into it even deeper and further so that I could speak confidently and competently and point out some sources to hers to share some information so that she could make up her own mind on that as well. So there's another article called Can Essential Oils Be Taken Internally? And this is written by Dr. David Hill, who is one of the founding executives, who's also the current chief medical officer and the chairman of doTERRA's scientific advisory board. So the summary of this article would be that the ever-expanding body of essential oil research continues to confirm the safety of internal application and validates its many uses. So those are all the doTERRA, well, maybe not all, but those are many doTERRA articles that are sourced and based on science. So as I said in the beginning, it's extremely important to me to move outside of the doTERRA world to find validating information that supports what they say. So Robert Tisserand is a really well-known essential oil advocate and scientist, and he's well-known the world over. And a lot of people turn to him as a solid, independent third-party source. He does a lot of testing, and he independent third-party testing for different oil companies. And he has a very demonstrated, a very strong and demonstrated understanding of how the body metabolizes essential oils and how essential oils are used by the body. So there's an article that I will link you to here, and I just want to read to you from that article. This was perhaps one of the first definitive sources that I found that gave me a very clear yes or no answer that was outside of doTERRA. Actually, this came after the book that I'm going to share with you, but I'll get to that. So Tisserand has an article on his website that is a transcript of an interview that he gave says he was interviewed by LeBron Allen, a functional medicine nutritionist based in Texas, and this was in December 2014 on a Health Alert radio show. So this is the quote that I sent out to my customers when I tackled ingestion in an email in our email education series. Tisserand says, "I've never said you should not ingest essential oils." And that's a very important statement because Tisserand is actually represented in certain blogs as saying that you should not ingest oils. And if you spend any time researching his replies on different blogs, sometimes bloggers don't want to correspond and they don't want their information corrected. So it appears that he's tried to correct different misconceptions, not just about ingestion, but other areas of discussion as well related to essential oils, and sometimes they just don't want to correct or retract or have a discussion about that information or even let him comment. Sometimes his comments have been deleted from various blogs, according to him. So he says, "I've never said you should not ingest essential oils. You may think you heard me say that today. I have not said that people should not ingest essential oils. I don't believe it's an absolute no-no. What I do believe is that you need to know what you're doing. I don't believe, what dose you're taking, how long you're going to be taking it for, and what the reason is. I don't think essential oils are substances that we should use proactively, because if you do get a viral infection, if you do get a serious illness and you want to use aromatherapy, and you have been dosing yourself with high amounts, okay, so that's very important, with large amounts of essential oils for years, well, now what are you going to do? Because your body's already habituated to these oils that you've been taking. So I want to highlight that. It says if you've already been taking large amounts of essential oils for years, okay? So one thing that you'll notice if you research on Tisseran's website, a lot of issues, moderation is extremely important. And 1 drop is very different than 10 or 20 drops. So if you're talking, so he says, your body's already habituated to these oils you've been taking if you're using very large amounts. If you're talking about very small amounts, he says, as you would get in food flavors, if we're talking about 1 or 2 drops a day, that's fine. That's okay. All right, so this is the world's leading essential oil expert, or one of the world's leading essential oil experts, independent. So if we're talking about 1 or 2 drops a day internally, that's fine and that's okay. But if you're taking a therapeutic dose of essential oils, which is like 10 to 20 drops a day, just because somebody told you it was a good idea, it's not a good idea. So personally, I have no problem drinking a drop or 2 of lemon in my water. I love spearmint and cucumber together. It's an amazing combo. And you know, a Slim and Sassy in my water here and there, peppermint sometimes, peppermint and lemon together. It depends. I have no problem drinking a drop or 2 in a large bottle of water. Glass or metal bottle of water, by the way. But when I get sick, so upon our return from Costa Rica, for example, I will take a drop of cinnamon while we're on vacation. So when we were in Belize last November, I took a drop of cinnamon oil in my coffee every single day to prevent internal parasites. And the book that I'm going to show you, actually, I learned it from that book, and that's why I use that. Some people use oregano when they're traveling to prevent internal parasites. So again, we're just talking 1 drop a day, and that was used in a preventative manner because it's a very small amount, and that was for a specific purpose. And so while we were in Costa Rica this time, I used Slim and Sassy a lot. I liked that because it had peppermint, it had grapefruit, it had lemon, ginger, and it had cinnamon. So I'm kind of covering all the bases with just 1 drop. I have a little bit of each of those oils there. And I think my water bottle was really large, so I think I was using 2 drops. And that's very refreshing. It's a really nice one to travel with. And I don't travel lightly when I mean, with my essential oils, we only pack a carry-on, so we do travel lightly, but I bring a lot of essential oils. And I just like having them with me for whatever comes up, you know. And tea tree and lavender, if you can only bring 2, I would bring tea tree and lavender. They're infinitely useful for a multitude of purposes when you're traveling. So anyway, upon our return from Costa Rica, I had yellow mucus in my nose, and I thought, well, okay, I'm clearly fighting something. So I took in a capsule a drop of tea tree, lemon, On Guard, and oregano. And that's what is often referred to as the flu bomb. Hey, buddy. He's very cuddly when we come home. So I take 1 drop of each of those in a capsule, so that's a total of 4 drops. And if I was really sick, if I was showing more symptoms than just a little bit of yellow mucus in my nose, I have taken 2 drops of each of those. So that's a total of 8 in a veg cap. And sometimes I add a little bit of olive oil to that, but usually I don't. And that is what I would consider a therapeutic dose. I'm taking it for a specific purpose, and I'm taking it for a limited amount of time, right? And that is still within the recommended ideal amounts in terms of what your daily recommended amounts of consumption guidelines are. So that's from Tisserand. So Tisserand is blatantly and flat out saying 1 or 2 drops a day is okay. And that's equivalent to what you would normally and hopefully consume if you're eating a large amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet, which we all should be doing. Sorry, bud. So the other resource that I wanted to point out to you, the other resource that I think validates a lot of the information that doTERRA is giving is this book. And if this is my bookmark, my Petitgreen and Spikenard things from invention. So anyway, if you are interested in the science behind essential oils and you want to understand how they're metabolized in your body, this is the book that you need, and it's a fantastic resource. And I want to read to you, this was the first source that I had found outside of doTERRA that validated the information that they were providing on the internal debate outside of their sourcing and the medical studies, right? Because this book makes it a little bit more approachable. So on page 54 of this book, so I won't go into some of the preamble. I'll just some of the areas that I've highlighted here. I think you can see. So I'm just going to read to you from this section. Mammalian organisms have had 100 million years to become adjusted to and interact with the molecules of the plant world. So they're talking about the components of essential oils from trees and plants, and the length of time that humans have interacted with these plants. The purportedly much safer pharmaceuticals are generally no older than 50 years old. On an evolutionary timescale, these synthetic drugs do not even register. So it says, and this I like because it touches on this liver detoxification issue that you hear on some of the more noteworthy blogs that sound a little bit more credible, but are ultimately misinformed. The presence of liver detoxification enzymes in the human body is one very important consequence of this very long period of continued evolutionary adjustment. Essential oil components were among the native triggers for the evolution of these enzymes. This illustrates how essential oils have unrivaled potential to induce the removal of foreign substances from the human organism. It is ironic that our bodies would not even be able to break down and remove pharmaceuticals were it not for enzymes that evolved in response to essential oils and other secondary metabolites. Mic drop. So, what that is basically saying is that during the course of millions of years and the way that humans have interacted with plants by breathing in their aromas, by eating them, we developed liver detoxification enzymes as a result of these interactions. And ultimately, these enzymes are not only able to get rid of or eliminate the essential oils and their byproducts from our body, but ironically, they are the whole reason that we are able to detox pharmaceuticals from our body. How cool is that, right? So I'm not going to go any deeper into that comparison between essential oils and pharmaceuticals. I'll leave that to you and your own opinion. But for me, the doTERRA sources, the science that they're noting, and the sources, the scientific sources that are outside of their employment, let's say, like their independent bodies, Robert Tisserand and Kurt Schnaubelt, who's a PhD with the healing intelligence of essential oils, that to me has far more credibility and weight than the 6 to 8 bloggers that are out there saying never ever drink a drop of essential oil in your water. Okay? I think that's a scare tactic personally. I think it is unfounded. I think it's irresponsible. And I think although they're trying to err on the side of caution, they're inducing fear and have not properly understood the science and the mechanisms that they're actually talking about. I think a lot of it is just regurgitated information. And that's why I wanted to share this. And it's just my take. I still encourage you to do all of your own research. I encourage you to read all of these links, get the book. If you're unsure, if you want to really truly understand it yourself and make up your mind for yourself, do it. You know, that's the best way to make a decision. Trust your own instinct, trust your gut, and be happy. Do what's best for you. Thanks for listening.